December 7th will be remembered as a historic day for both France and the Catholic world, with the long-awaited reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral. This iconic monument, a spiritual and cultural emblem of Paris and all of Western Christianity, is reborn 5 years after the fire that nearly turned it to rubble. Although the event was met with enthusiasm, it wasn't without controversy. One absence in particular did not go unnoticed, that of Pope Francis. The fact that the pontiff did not attend the ceremony raised questions and sparked debate. He even declined President Emmanuel Macron's invitation to celebrate the first Mass in the restored cathedral. What led the highest leader of the Catholic Church to not be present at such a momentous occasion? Notre Dame is not simply a building. It represents the living heart of the Catholic faith in France, a symbol of resilience, unity, and dedication. The reopening offered a unique opportunity to reinforce the centrality of the Church in a society facing a growing process of secularization. This gesture did not go unnoticed by some French bishops, who reportedly expressed their discomfort at the Pope's absence in Paris. It was also not well received by certain sectors of the French establishment, who saw his decision as a sign of distancing. Pope Francis's absence from this celebration has fueled much speculation. Was it a decision with political, symbolic, or even theological undertones? While the Vatican adopted a neutral stance, sending a message of spiritual closeness to the French faithful, the silence on the specific reasons behind his absence left room for various interpretations. Some of these interpretations even question his vision of the papacy and his relationship with the Church in today's world. Official sources indicated that the pontiff decided not to attend the ceremony to prioritize other pastoral activities. However, this explanation failed to quell the criticism or silence the doubts. How could one justify that the leader of the Catholic Church chose to avoid an event that celebrated one of the greatest treasures of Europe's spiritual heritage? Another revealing detail came from sources close to the Élysée Palace. Macron had formally invited Pope Francis to preside over the inaugural Mass in the restored cathedral. His rejection of this invitation caused surprise and, in some circles, was interpreted as a sign of disapproval. Could it be that the Pope wanted to avoid being too closely linked to a controversial political leader? Or does this decision hide something deeper? France, historically known as the eldest daughter of the Church, has gone through a process of secularization in recent decades that has strained its relationship with the Vatican. For some, secularist laws and recent bioethical regulations, such as same-sex marriage or the debates about euthanasia, represent a departure from the traditional values of Catholicism. In this context, Pope Francis's absence from the reopening of Notre Dame could be interpreted as a gesture of disapproval towards the political and social decisions taken by France in recent years. This gesture could be read as an implicit message. The Church is not willing to participate in ceremonies that are perceived as a celebration of empty values, devoid of true spiritual meaning. For some, the cathedral's reopening ceremony was seen as a strategic opportunity for President Emmanuel Macron to strengthen his political position. The presence of prominent international leaders and the extensive media coverage added a significant political dimension to the event. From this perspective, Pope Francis's refusal to attend could be interpreted as his desire to avoid being used for political purposes. Furthermore, Macron's decision to invite controversial figures like Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky brought a geopolitical nuance that seemed to clash with the spiritual nature of the ceremony. In this sense, the pontiff's absence could be seen as an attempt to preserve the Church's independence from political dynamics, reaffirming that it should not be used to improve the image of a secularized leader. On the other hand, recent revelations about historical abuses within the Church, such as those related to the Abbey of Pierre, have aggravated internal tensions and eroded the trust of the faithful. These controversies have put the Church in a vulnerable position, facing constant scrutiny. Pope Francis's presence at Notre Dame could have intensified criticism and protests, diverting attention from the true spiritual message that the event was meant to convey. For some observers, his absence was a calculated act, intended to distance himself from a symbol that, although Christian in essence, is often perceived more as a cultural icon than as a place of faith. This could be interpreted as a form of silent protest against the profane use of a sacred space. While the Catholic world focused its attention on the reopening of Notre Dame, Pope Francis chose to be in Corsica, a decision that, although seemingly secondary, was loaded with significant implications. This alternative approach raises questions. Is Corsica a message in itself? The island, located on the geographical and cultural periphery of Europe, represents a clear contrast to the continent's centers of power. His choice could symbolize a desire by the Pope to turn his attention to marginalized regions, reinforcing the idea that the Church should be close to the most forgotten, rather than being part of shows of power or influence. Pope Francis's visit to Corsica can be interpreted as a reminder of the existential peripheries, one of the central axes of his pontificate. However, this choice has raised doubts. Why choose a relatively small community at a time when the symbolism of Notre Dame could have unified the Catholic world? Some critics see this decision as a form of provocation, a gesture intended to underline the pontiff's rejection of major media events, and a Christianity that, in his view, has settled for empty symbols, forgetting to renew its faith. In this sense, Corsica, with its simpler spirituality and less influenced by ostentation, could represent for the Pope an authentic faith, in contrast to what he perceives as the spiritual decay of cities like Paris. In this line of interpretation, his absence at Notre Dame would be a resounding judgment not only on France, but also on Western Europe, which he accuses of having abandoned its Christian roots in favor of a shallow secularism. It cannot be ruled out that this decision had internal repercussions. In a French church already weakened and divided by scandals, the Pope's choice not to attend such an emblematic event could have been seen as an implicit criticism of its leaders. This gesture could be understood as a call for a more humble church, closer to the poor, less committed to the structures of political and cultural power. Thus, the Pope's absence becomes a message for the Church itself, an invitation to rethink its role in an increasingly secularized and polarized society. In a context marked by crises and divisions, his decision seems to be a warning about the need to return to the roots of faith, moving away from ostentation and compromises with power. Beyond the practical reasons for not attending, political tensions, ideological disagreements, or even pastoral priorities, Francis's absence at Notre Dame constitutes a powerful message. The gesture challenges appearances and denounces the superficiality of a Christianity reduced to a spectacle or a tool of political power. By not being present, the Pope not only points out the shortcomings of Europe and its secularized society, but also those of the Church itself, encouraging it to rediscover the essence of its mission, an authentic faith, rooted in humility and free from compromises that dilute its true meaning. In short, his absence was not an oversight or a matter of scheduling. It was a deliberate act, loaded with symbolism and intended to provoke deep reflection in the Catholic world and beyond. Francis was not present, and the underlying reason seems clear. Authentic faith does not lend itself to compromises with a world that all too often strips the sacred of its true meaning. The reopening of Notre Dame, as monumental as it is, raises a deeper and more crucial question. Is European Christianity ready to reopen its heart to genuine faith? As the doors of the iconic cathedral reopen to the world, the true transformation lies not in restoring buildings, but in revitalizing the spirit of a Christianity that, in many parts of Europe, seems to have succumbed to secularism and indifference. Francis's absence, more than a simple logistical decision, is a reminder that faith is not celebrated in facades, but in an authentic conversion of the heart and of society. If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.